The air was suffocating, thick with dust, and the sunlight barely cut through the grime-covered windows of the abandoned asylum, casting haunting shadows on the crumbling walls. It wasn't the kind of place anyone would dare enter, unless they were searching for something more than just history. But we did. A group of urban explorers, drawn by the eerie whispers of forbidden experiments and forgotten lives, stepped into the dark, decaying halls. We'd heard the rumors about the corridors that led to nowhere, the strange whispers of past horrors, but nothing could have prepared us for the terrifying truth we uncovered that day. Please kindly hit the like button, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next chilling tales. It was hidden beneath layers of dust, in a room most people would have passed by. The door, almost sealed shut, creaked loudly as we pried it open. Inside, there were old medical equipment, rusted filing cabinets, and piles of forgotten papers. But it wasn't the papers that caught our attention. It was the journals, bound in faded leather, their pages yellowed with age. They were stacked haphazardly in a corner. A chill ran down my spine as I picked up the first one. It was as if these books had been waiting for someone to find them, someone to finally listen. The first journal opened with cryptic handwriting. It's day 42, and they still haven't come for me. I fear the worst. Each entry was a cry for help, a fragment of a life once lived behind locked doors. As I turned the pages, the tremor of possibility began to set in. These were the forgotten voices of the asylum's inhabitants. They had been silenced, their stories buried. But now, through their words, their voices would be heard once more. As we began to read deeper into the journals, the gravity of what we had uncovered became clear. These weren't mere scribbles or fragments of random thoughts. These were raw, unfiltered accounts of life within the asylum's walls. They spoke of hope, despair, fear, and the human will to survive in the face of unimaginable circumstances. There was one entry that stood out, written by a woman named Margaret. The days have blurred into one. Each is the same, dull, lifeless, trapped in this sterile white room. Dr. Farrow tells me I must get better. But what is better? What is normal? I have seen the others here, some of them screaming, others too quiet. Dr. Farrow says I should be thankful for the treatments, but I wonder if it's them that are broken or me. Margaret's words felt like a confession, a desperate plea for understanding. Her journal gave us a glimpse of the daily life within the asylum. The mundane routines, the constant feeling of being watched, and the undercurrent of fear that pervaded everything. There was another journal, written by a man named Thomas, whose handwriting trembled in places. I've been here 3 weeks now. They tell me it's for my own good, but I'm not mad. I don't belong here. I've seen the other patients. They do strange things. Sometimes I think they're not patients at all, but something else entirely. I overheard one of the staff talking about experiments. They say they are helping us, but I don't know if I can trust them anymore. What was Thomas talking about? Experiments? What kind of experiments could be taking place behind closed doors? The more we read, the more unsettling the truth became. These journals were fragments of a much darker history, a history that had been intentionally buried. Patterns began to emerge. The more we read, the more we realized that many of the patients' accounts described a similar series of events. Strange medical treatments, drug-induced states, forced isolation, and, in some cases, outright cruelty from the staff. The institution's shadow loomed over everything. It wasn't just a place for healing. It was a place where lives were broken, hopes shattered, and secrets festered in the darkness. Among the journals, there were rare glimpses into the minds of the asylum staff. Some entries were written by caregivers, but they were as cryptic and troubling as the patients' accounts. One, written by a nurse named Helen, revealed chilling insights into the staff's attitudes toward the patients. I can't stand the constant noise, the screaming, the begging. It's unbearable. But Dr. Farrow insists it's all part of the process. He says the more we push them, the closer they get to recovery. Sometimes I wonder if it's really them who need help. We've lost so many patients this week, but Dr. Farrow tells us not to mourn. They were weak, he says. The strong will survive. Helen's words sent a shiver down my spine. What kind of person could see the suffering of others and dismiss it so callously? But then I remembered the chilling theory that had been building in my mind. The asylum wasn't just a place for mental illness. It was a testing ground for something far more sinister. Perhaps the patients weren't the only ones being experimented on. One of the most disturbing journal entries came from a patient who had witnessed something horrific. It read, "I saw them take someone today. It was quiet, almost as if no one noticed. Dr. Farrow and his colleagues led him away to the back room. They didn't even look at us. I don't know what happened to him, but I know he didn't come back. No one does." The institution's dark heart began to beat louder with each page we turned. The chilling practices that took place within these walls were no longer just rumors. They were written in the very ink of these journals. We had read the journals of many patients, but there was still no answer to the most haunting question. What happened to them? What became of these individuals whose voices we had just unearthed? We had uncovered their pain, their fears, their confusion, but their fates remained a mystery. The asylum had been abandoned, left to rot with the passing of time, but there were whispers, rumors that some patients had died in those walls, their names erased from history. Others were said to have been released, but at what cost? Had they been fully healed, or had they been discarded like broken toys, their lives forever altered by the trauma they had endured? We found no definitive answers in the journals, only more questions. The institution had closed its doors, but its legacy of suffering lingered, woven into the very fabric of its walls. We were about to leave the abandoned asylum, the journals in hand, the weight of their contents heavy on our minds, when something strange happened. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. A noise, faint, almost imperceptible, echoed down the hall. It wasn't the usual creaking of an old building or the rustle of rats in the walls. This was something more, a soft, deliberate sound that seemed to beckon us forward. At first, we thought it was just the wind, but as we moved deeper into the asylum, the noise grew clearer, almost as if it was guiding us. A low, rhythmic tapping, followed by a whisper, a voice calling out from the darkness. We exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether we were imagining things, but something told us we had to follow. The hallway was long, lined with broken doors and forgotten rooms, their contents left to rot. But at the end of the corridor, a door stood ajar. It was different from the others, not as decayed as if someone had recently been through. The air around it felt colder, as though something was waiting behind it. I could feel my heartbeat quicken as I stepped toward the door, my flashlight shaking in my hand. The tapping continued, now louder, almost frantic. It seemed to be coming from inside the room. Without thinking, I pushed the door open. The room was bare, save for a single chair placed in the center. But it wasn't the emptiness of the room that caught my attention. It was the walls. They were covered in markings, scrawled messages written in what looked like blood. Words and symbols, most of them unintelligible but some clearly legible. "The clock is ticking," one read. Another, "You should never have come here." As I stepped inside, the air seemed to grow thick, heavy with the oppressive weight of the past. The whispering grew louder, more distinct. And then, just as I thought I was losing my mind, I noticed something even more chilling. In the corner of the room, almost hidden beneath a layer of dust, was another journal. It was different from the ones we had found earlier, smaller, older, and bound in black leather. I reached for it cautiously, my hands trembling. The moment my fingers brushed the cover, the whispering stopped, and the temperature in the room dropped sharply. I opened the journal, and what I found inside sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't written by any of the patients whose stories we had read. No, this journal was different. It was written in the handwriting of someone I recognized, Dr. Farrow. The entries were disturbingly calm, but the more I read, the more horrifying the truth became. This was no ordinary record. Dr. Farrow's words were methodical, as if he were keeping track of an experiment. Day 1. Subject has shown signs of resistance. Increased dosages are necessary. They must not know the purpose of the treatment. Day 14. Subject shows signs of mental deterioration. Increase the pressure. They must break. Their minds are the key to the next stage. Day 30. The subjects are beginning to understand. They must be silenced. I've instructed the staff to increase isolation procedures. Only the strongest will remain. The further I read, the more my stomach churned. This wasn't just the record of a psychiatrist. It was the log of someone who had orchestrated a horrific experiment on human beings. The patients, the ones whose voices we had heard in the journals, weren't just patients. They were lab rats, subjects in a cruel and twisted experiment. But it didn't stop there. As I flipped to the final entry, my heart stopped. The last subject will be used to complete the final experiment. I am confident that this will be the breakthrough I've been waiting for, the key to unlocking the human mind. I froze. The last subject. The words echoed in my mind. What had happened to them? Who was the final subject? And why was Dr. Farrow so obsessed with breaking their mind? Suddenly, the silence in the room was shattered by a loud bang from the hallway. My body froze, instinctively bracing for what was coming next. The tapping started again. Louder now, more frantic, as if someone or something was trying to get to us. I slammed the journal shut, my pulse racing. The truth was right in front of me. The asylum hadn't just housed patients. It had been a place for dark, twisted experiments. And now, whatever was still lurking in the asylum seemed determined to keep its secrets buried. With the journal in hand, we backed out of the room, our footsteps echoing through the hallway as the tapping grew louder, closer. I glanced over my shoulder. Nothing. But the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. We rushed back to the main hall, our breaths quick and shallow. The door that had been open earlier was now slammed shut, as if something or someone was trapping us inside. Panic set in. We had to get out, but we didn't know how. Then we heard it. A voice, not from the journals, but from the shadows. It was soft at first, but as it grew louder, the words became chilling. You shouldn't have come here. You've seen too much. The voice was followed by a low, guttural laugh that echoed through the empty halls. I turned to run, but the hallway stretched out longer than it had before. The asylum seemed to be shifting, pulling us deeper into its maze. It was like the building itself was alive with the memories of everything that had happened here. In that moment, I realized something. This wasn't just a building. It was a prison for the souls who had been trapped inside, forgotten and abandoned. And now we were part of its twisted legacy. We ran, desperately searching for an exit. But the asylum was closing in around us. The doors were locked, the windows shattered. No escape. The deeper we went, the more the whispers surrounded us, becoming louder, more insistent. And then, just as we were about to lose all hope, I saw it. A glimmer of light. A faint exit sign glowing in the distance. We sprinted toward it, the sound of our footsteps the only thing keeping us grounded in reality. But as we reached the door, I turned one last time. Through the darkness, I could see figures standing at the far end of the hall, watching us. They were the patients, those whose voices had echoed through the journals. But now they were no longer trapped in the past. They were here in the asylum, waiting for us to join them. I didn't look back again. We ran through the exit and into the night, but the echoes of the asylum followed us. Those journals, the secrets they contained, and the voices they had unearthed. None of it was over. The asylum's legacy had been unleashed, and now its ghosts would never be silenced again. As the night swallowed us whole, one thought lingered. The asylum wasn't truly abandoned. It was still alive, waiting for the next soul to discover its secrets. And now it had found us. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next chilling tales. Never forget, the past is never truly gone, and that some secrets are buried so deeply that their consequences are unimaginable when they resurface. And curiosity can lead to uncovering horrors that should have stayed hidden. And once those dark truths are discovered, they have the power to consume everything in their path.